Is that one of your chef shirts?
No. This is like shirt my stylist gave me.
Where does this fashion sense come from? You have a very unique look all the time. I honestly thought, like, is this guy wearing...
Yo, it's so funny because my stylist was there today and the photographer was like, what's his fashion style? And she was like, I don't know. And I'm a stylist and I can't tell you what his fashion sense is. She was like, eccentric? I don't know what the fuck it is.
As a broadcast journalist, I've spent my life traveling the world and made my living interviewing the greatest fighters of all time. When boxing shut down, I finally had a chance to look around this world of conflict and could see the fight in everyone. Until this day, I talk to the greatest fighters and thinkers of our time about their fight. On Luminary, I'm Radio Rahim. Till this day. Today we start the first chapter in the book of, well, let's call it the cookbook, of an aspiring kid from the Bronx who changed the culinary landscape by planting his native roots in the dishes he served the world. Chef Kwame Onwuachi. Chapter 1, Made to Order. Clothes are an expression of yourself, though, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is something that you have found a way to do. When did you put together your first outfit, like as a kid?
It was before I got sent to Africa. So I was 9 years old, 10 years old.
Wow. Do you remember what it was?
Mm-hmm. It was a Ralph Lauren striped rugby shirt, but like the long sleeve one, blue jeans, and Air Force Ones.
See, that's a very American kid outfit. I remember having...
Something like that.
Something like that outfit.
But that's pre-Kanye West, Ralph Lauren, all right?
Right. And that kind of expression being unique to American kids, was there a special understanding being that your father's African, living there, knowing the duality of these cultures? Like, I didn't know the world was that big when I was that young.
Yeah, I mean, it let me know that I can pretty much do whatever I wanted to do, you know? Because, like, I went to Nigeria when I was, like, 5 years old. My father took me there. He wanted me to touch the grass. My grandfather created Pan-Africanism. He was one of the founding people to really talk about going back to Africa. Let's leave America. Let's go back to where we came from. And, you know, all black people were like, you crazy, man. I ain't going back to Africa. He created this Pan-African center for people to come back to. My father wanted me to see it. So he brought me out there. And I remember as a kid running around this Pan-African center, this like large area of land that my grandfather built for black people to come back to and have a home in Nigeria. So at a very young age, I had flown across the world, you know, been on a plane for hours and hours and hours, and then drove through the bush and landed in my home, Ibuzo, Nigeria. Like I was in a village. My grandfather was the chief of the village. So yeah, I saw two different worlds. I saw men wearing long blouse-like shirts, dashikis, or whatever you want to call them, cloth, whatever you want to call it. And in America, I saw us wearing business suits. My idea for fashion, I think at a very young age, was like, you can go all the way to the end, or you can mix and match what we got here.
Now, you were born in the Bronx.
I was born in the Bronx, yeah.
Did you see being an American as a leg up in a path to being somebody and having a kind of freedom and opportunity that may not have been afforded to you had you been born in the African continent?
I can't call that because I wasn't born there, and I don't want to speak on someone else's trajectory or lack thereof. From my optics that I have and what I saw is in America, you can make it out of a certain caste system easier than other nations. Now, there are a lot of roadblocks that were put in front of us to prohibit us from even thinking that we can achieve anything. There's a lot of institutional racism. There's a lot of redlining. There's so many things that have been the justice system. There's things in place for us to fail, especially if you pair the color of our skin with not having a lot of money.
Essentially, as a kid, did you already feel, or do you remember a time when you felt like, hey, I'm not getting the opportunity that I deserve?
No, I didn't think that. I thought that I could do anything that I put my mind to, honestly. You know, I was tested for the gifted program and I passed. I would, audition for plays and get the lead part. I was always trying to do the best that I possibly could with the tools that I was given.
Now, a gifted program, that's an important thing for a Black kid to qualify for. I went to performing arts school. That's where I was gifted.
Exactly.
And to get on that track made a difference, not just in which schools I could attend, but how you're socially viewed, the kind of friends you make, the world perspective that you get because the people around you are looking at the world differently. How much did that ability to be in a gifted program or on a track for kids who had some kind of exceptional talent alter your path early in life?
I think it changed my mindset. It made me think I was gifted. Like I had this panel of people tell me that I'm gifted. Everyone around you saying that you're gifted. You're in a small class in a large school and you feel special. With that feeling of thinking you're special, then you become special.
Was that the first external affirmation that you were special?
Yeah, definitely.
I grew up as an only child. I really feel bad for people who have siblings.
Yeah, it sucks.
What was it like inside the house, forging your own identity inside that framework?
That's a great question. My mother did a really good job at letting us be free, letting us be who we are and letting us express ourselves. I think it helps that she was a hippie. She's a very, very free spirit. She let us create our own identity.
Your relationship with your father and subsequently family dynamic between all of you, would you consider that to be a positive one?
In short, no, it wasn't a positive one. It's tough when I look back at parents in general. There's no rule book or handbook on how to be a parent, especially if you break down the different periods of time. You think of a father and a Black father in the 70s, you're 10 years removed from segregation. You're thinking about how your child can get lynched. You talk about the 80s, crack epidemic. What does that look like for an African American? And how do you translate that to being a parent? It's tough. At the end of the day, it wasn't a good relationship, but I tried to empathize with my father and what he was going through that gave him the inability to let his child be a child.
Are you only now recently able to put yourself in his shoes and see it through his eyes?
It hasn't been recent. I've tried. I've tried multiple times. Let's call a spade. Every child wants their parents' admiration. I've tried to empathize my whole life with him, but there's been a lack of understanding because I was the one who actually went through it. Right. So that's why I have to remove myself from that situation.
You talk a lot about being in your mother's kitchen, being the first sous chef job you had. What did that feel like?
It felt free. It felt right. It felt like it was something that I should be doing, even at a very young age. It was something that I can see that I enjoyed more than other people that were around, whether it was helping my mom out or during the holidays and the family was getting together. I was very, very interested in the food and then making it the best that it can possibly be. And I was very inquisitive of why do you do a certain thing this way? Why are we adding this at this point instead of at this point? Where does this dish come from?
And what's your sister doing at the time?
Oh, she was a teenager, so God knows what the hell she was doing. But she was in the kitchen with us sometimes as well. She still cooks to this day.
Wait, so she's a teenager. And how old are you at this time?
When I first get in the kitchen, I'm about 5 years old. When I could really handle a knife and anything, she was 15. We're 5 years apart.
Do you have a relationship with your father at this time?
Yeah, my father was in my life for sure.
That's what mom's creating the environment of cooking and giving you some freedom and you're able to explore a thing. What's dad doing?
He was very big on education, very, very disciplined. And I think that's where I get that from. Very particular about every single thing. We cooked in the kitchen sometimes as well. I learned Nigerian recipes from him. Super spontaneous. Loved to go to Six Flags on a whim. Taught me how to catch baseball, kind of like normal dad shit. He lived on the other side of the Bronx at the time. So I would see him on the weekends and I would spend the week with my mom.
Do you have a preference where to be?
Yeah. Without a doubt, with my mom, for sure.
Was going to Pops like a chore or an obligation, something you would do if you didn't have to?
It depends on the weekend, honestly. Sometimes I was excited to go there because it was so spontaneous. You know, sometimes, we would teach me how to like build a kite and fly it, or we'd go fishing. They were like really, really great moments of connectivity between a father and son that we had that I definitely enjoyed. And I just wanted that part. I don't think any kid wants discipline. The ways that I was being disciplined were damaging.
Damaging to your spirit?
Damaging to my spirit, damaging to my soul, damaging to the way I viewed myself as a person.
Most mama's boys, such as myself, remember their mom in this glowing light. And I would describe mine much the same way as you would describe yours. It took me aback when you said that feeling of freedom when I look back on my relationship with my mother. And if I could only think of for one thing, it would be letting me be myself. I've read you write about, you say the spontaneous nature of your dad, but then also the flip side of that spontaneity was unpredictability and even violence. Did it change the Kwame that we would encounter at your dad's house as opposed to your mom's house? Did it force you to become split personalities, if you will?
Absolutely. I don't even think my dad really knows who I am because I had to act a certain way. I was always on eggshells, trying to make sure that I didn't mess anything up. But it also made me into the person that I am today. And I know that, and I give him credit for that. My extreme discipline, my search for excellence in everything that I'm doing, my dedication, the way that I take care of people is because of my dad. My responsibility in my business affairs, in my personal life is because of my father. There were things that rubbed off on me in the right way, absolutely. But I couldn't be the same person I was with my mom, with my father.
You're not just evolving on one track with the same group of people, get a job, work there for 30 years in the same school with the same kids. That's not you.
I'm moving and shaking.
So what I'm asking is how many different approaches to people and really personalities that you have to develop to be able to walk into all of these different doors comfortably, or were you comfortable?
I'm comfortable in my own skin. I can match someone's energy to make someone else feel comfortable.
That's a chameleon. When I asked you what the fight was in you, you said it was access to information and the ability to learn alongside people with access.
With access, yeah. Fighting into rooms all the time.
There has to be a time when you recognize that's something you would have to fight for.
I just remember me not getting this role in this play to this kid that was white, and I knew I was better. Every single year, I was the lead. I just felt weird about it. I couldn't really tell you that it was racism. I didn't really know how to really portray it. When I thought about as being racist, it came in such a roundabout way. Because my best friend growing up was white in the gifted program. He was a white kid in the gifted program. We started to get a little bit older. The kids in the other classes that weren't in the gifted program started to pick on us. And my friend pushed him, kicked his jacket. He walked over. And he said,
I hate black people, Kwame.
And I was like, what? And he was like,
no, not you, but like I hate black people, like they suck.
And it was at that point where I started to like think of these microaggressions of situations of white teachers to me. I didn't really think about it. I've heard of racism, but to hear it from someone that was so close, I was devastated when he said that, to the point where I was crying. Then my eyes opened up.
What grade was this when you didn't get the lead in the play?
This had to be before Africa, so this is like 5th or 4th grade.
This is when people are starting to carve out their social identities for real. And these relationships that you forge with the gifted kids, well, that's because you tested into that program. Once separated from the kids who didn't get into the program, did you understand in some way you were leaving those kids behind?
No, I just knew that I was smarter, and that's it.
You're smarter.
But what is smart, right? Like, how do you quantify smart when you're in 1st grade? I don't know the algorithm of that or the higher powers that are creating these ABCD tests. I don't know. I just knew that I was smarter. Also, like, the kids that were like my cousins and stuff. I just knew that I was smarter in the decisions I would be making. Like, I could tell that I was just a little bit more intelligent at a young age.
So this experience you had, on the one hand, not getting the role you feel like you should have got that the white kid got, and then your best friend categorizing an entire race of people as sucking, except for you because you're a good one.
Exactly.
At that time, you conflate these two experiences?
I started to. My mother was very vocal about that. She let me know that this wouldn't be happening if this wasn't the color of your skin. The most stark point for me was when I got my first job. They just wouldn't let me work the register. They would never let me work the register.
Where was this? Where'd you work?
This was at McDonald's.
Everybody works the register at McDonald's.
I know, man. They wouldn't let me work the register. I was so sad that they would not let me work the register.
Were you a fry guy?
I was a grill guy, and then I became a screen guy, the guy that expedites the whole restaurant. It's like, all right, let's drop 2 quarter pounders over there. We got 5 filet of fish on the back end. And
in a way, that might have been your first chef job.
It was. It was. I learned it really, really quick. I was 15 years old, and I got into the screen, which was a coveted position, but working the register was like, you know, you weren't hot.
Right.
You got to talk to people.
And it's a trusted position.
And it's a trusted position.
They'll trust you with the whole restaurant, but not the money.
Without the money, yeah.
I gotta tell you, this is a pretty special day for me. I've never spoken to anybody who worked the boards at McDonald's.
Oh, I was that guy.
Is that a high-pressure environment?
Oh, super high pressure.
McDonald's.
Yes! And I'm 15, man. But I was so good at it. And it was like Macy's. So like, this is 34th Street. Like, this is one of the busiest McDonald's in the world. We would do tens of thousands of covers.
By the way, I don't think anyone ever in the history of McDonald's has ever called them covers. But
they are covers. They demand respect. Okay? I was so good at it. So good at it. I loved my time at McDonald's.
Did that experience at all mirror what like a real high level intense kitchen was like?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Once again, in a way, this barrier
to the past, to the front lines, it remained all the way up to the top. Then it became way more apparent the higher I got up in the food industry. I was a mischievous kid. So, like, I was always in the principal's office for something. I wasn't allowed to go on trips.
Or what is it inside of you that's agitating you when you could just make things a lot easier for yourself by going along, getting along?
I was just acting out. I was seeking attention. I've been to therapists, and they say I was abused as a kid, so I was seeking for something in other ways. But I can't call it. I was just, my mind just wants to do things all the time. It just wants to, like, experience life in different ways. I'm not really wanting to stick to societal norms, ever.
You didn't think of yourself as abused when you were a kid, though. These are things you look back on.
No, I didn't know that I was being abused. I mean, I know it was wrong and it didn't make me feel good. So I don't know what that does to a child's point of view. I didn't know I was being abused, but I walked out of my father's house at 12 years old saying something ain't right. Like, I don't know what normal is, but this shit is trash. I'm gonna figure it out. And I left, and I haven't looked back since.
And you haven't looked back since?
I've looked back a couple times. I've tried to make amends and, like, you know, and then you seek your parents' validation, you know, but I know at this point that it's just not something that is conducive for my growth, and I have to just walk away from that scenario.
Was the cooking in your mom's kitchen and subsequently at McDonald's even an escape for you? When you're in the kitchen like that, are you shutting everything else out?
Oh, yeah.
Or are you letting everything else in?
When I cook, I shut everything out. It's like, I can just do this all day long. It's something to focus on, get rid of all the noise, all the voices at the back of your head telling you that constantly, that what you're doing is wrong. You're not going to amount to anything. You're not going to do this. And that's really also something that keeps me going, keeps me pushing forward. I'm trying to escape that. And that's why I get to the next level. I'm like, no, I need to get something better. I need to get something bigger.
So where did you go from there? With that attitude, with that experience, what's next?
I was 15, just turned 16. I think I started selling drugs. We're smoking weed all the time anyway. Why don't we make money off of this shit?
Well, okay. Well, so I'm assuming you don't just go from being a responsible 15-year-old kid running McDonald's to all of a sudden becoming Nino Brown.
I didn't see the bad in it. It was weed.
Okay, but how did that happen? How did you get weed enough to sell? How did you set up a structure to sell weed?
I remember being at school and this kid named, I don't know why I remember the name Daniel. He was like,
I'm a drug dealer now. You want to sell weed for me? I'm like, sure.
he gives me like 5 nickel bags back in the day. And he's like,
Go and sell us and bring me my money back.
so I stand on the corner. I'm like,
You literally stand on the
I
corner?
didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. I'm like,
I got the weed.
no one buys from me. There was 6 nickel bags, so I had to give him $30, and it was like devastating to me at that time.
Wait, you had to give him $30 out of your pocket, or you were?
Because I smoked 2 of them. I was like, fucked it up. Didn't want to come back short. I was just like, I sold them, but I'm out the game, baby. I was
Right.
like that.
Okay, weed dealers might be more amenable to that, but that's not the way drug
It's not the
dealing
way you
usually
do it.
goes.
That's not the way you do it. So then I started hanging out more at my friend's house who's in the projects. I started making more friends. We're smoking weed more. And I make friends with the head drug dealer's little brother. He's like,
Hey, I can get you an ounce for $60.
at the time or whatever. Go with him to this sketchy ass fucking place, get this ounce. And I just started selling to my friends.
I'm like, hey, y'all buy weed from everybody else. I got a weed now. Hit me up.
There's no moral imperative here. You don't feel like, I'm taking a different path in this gifted course, getting a job that's
I'm in my
legal and paying.
environment. I see people selling weed all the time at that point. And I'm looking at this as an easy win. All my friends smoke weed. We're potheads. At the very least, I can support my habit.
If only choosing your path was as easy as painting black or white. Our lives are defined by a series of brushstrokes. The catch is you never know which choice will color your life. Chapter 2, Where There's Smoke.
I got kicked out of my high school.
Why?
To this day, I don't really know. Again, I wasn't doing anything violent. I was mischievous. I would pull pranks every now and then. I was insubordinate. Maybe that's why. I went to a Catholic school and I was insubordinate. You can tell me to do my homework, I would say no, and then I would take the test and I would pass. I still don't think I was a terror enough to be expelled from school. Now, granted, before we went on summer break, I was making fun of the dean. He was yelling at me, and then I started imitating him, and this was like in front of the whole like lunchroom, to the point where he was so angry, he was like tearing. He brought me in his office and said, I'm gonna make sure you don't get into any private school in the tri-state area. You're fucking done. I took it as an empty threat. Like, can I go? Can I go back to class? All right, cool, man. I'll see you in detention. Woo. So I went to school senior year. And I got there early because I had new Prada sneakers. They were the new ones that came out, and I wanted to be there before everyone got to school. So I took the train a little bit earlier, and I got there, and the dean was like, what are you doing here? I was like, what do you mean? He was like, we sent you a letter saying you can't come back to the school. I was like, what? This is day 1. He was like, leave before anyone sees you now. So I had to find a new school within the first 2 weeks of my senior year. I went to school right down the block from where my friend lived in the projects. It was a McDonald's across the street. I started working there.
Is your mother at all aware of what you're doing?
Because my mother left New York pretty much the end of my junior year of high school. She moved to Louisiana to start cooking. So I was autonomous at that point in time. I was just like taking care of myself, doing whatever I had to do to get money, to really just take care of myself.
you're still needing some parental structure. Are you close enough to this stepfather where he's now stepped into the role of father?
That's a heavy question. Me and my stepfather were close. I still didn't connect with him enough to let him in. My sister woke me up a lot of times to go to school, but there wasn't anybody like, let me check your homework. There was no one at the phone if the teacher called. I didn't go to prom because I couldn't afford anything. My stepfather there, he didn't have enough money to afford a suit, let alone a limo, like even just a suit. I think a portion of me wanted to be taken care of as a child, and I wasn't in a sense. There were nights that we didn't have food as well. But I think that is a portion of where my fight comes from, of fighting to take care of myself in the way that I feel that I deserve. I end up getting into the gang there. They were like,
you did what needed to be done. You're a part of our gang. You're safe here.
I had a whole world open up to me in the projects. I started selling more and really making a name for myself. I got a car. I wasn't the toughest kid on the block, but I was excelling at their game.
Are you seeing Bronx now as a home where you're becoming a man and establishing some roots? Or are you looking to do all this to get the fuck out of the Bronx?
At the same time I was doing all this, I was incredibly terrified. Man, I remember getting my first gun at like 16. I'm not the most gangster motherfucker out there, but I needed this shit to protect myself. I knew that this wasn't normal because I didn't feel comfortable with it. I was afraid of getting stopped by the police and getting 5 years. I was afraid of having to actually use it. I was afraid of pulling it out and not being fast enough and someone hitting me first. I knew that the life wasn't normal, but I had assimilated to my environment to survive. That's all that I was doing, was surviving.
Was there a moment where you had to face any of those fears? Something happened on the street where it's like, okay, this shit is real.
I've seen people get stomped out many a times for no reason at all, that were just walking through. They didn't have to be gang affiliated or anything. It was just a sport because of boredom. We were walking one time and this guy started beating the crap out of this couple. He tried to talk to the girlfriend. She didn't respond. So he picked up a broomstick, beat the guy with the broomstick to the point where it cracked open and became jagged. And started ripping pieces of his face off of him. So we all start running. Guy goes this way, I go this way. The police come and stop me. The ambulance pulls up. This guy has blood coming all down his eyes. And he's like,
we found him running. This is the guy, right?
Now I'm black. This other guy's black. This guy has blood running down his fucking face. I'll never forget this moment because I'm like, I'm going to jail for 10 years. And he squints through. He's like, I don't think that's him. And the police officer's like,
it's him. We found him running. Are you sure? Take another look.
And he's like, officer, it's not him. The guy just pushes me and lets me go. Wow. That's where I'm saying it was dangerous in so many ways. You never know when it could be your time. And I knew I had to get out. So I got into college and I saw that as my ticket out. And when I got to college, my stepfather moved me in and he handed me $20.
Did that resentment bubble up in that moment?
Yeah, there was always resentment in moments like that. My friend, who was from the projects, they were super rent controlled, and his mother was a nurse, so she had a plethora of money compared to my family, and there were snacks and juice and things to sustain life. I didn't even have a meal plan. I was sitting down, and I still had the $20 in my pocket, and I looked up, he had these Hawaiian Punch. I thought back to the nutcrackers we had in New York City. Now, nutcrackers are like the hood cocktail they serve on the street in the summertime. They push them in a shopping cart. They're $5 and they don't check ID. So it's amazing when you're growing up as a teen in New York City. I was like, can I borrow your Hawaiian Punch? I'll pay you back if I make some money off of this. He's like, sure. I went to the liquor store. I buy Bacardi Raz or some shit for $20.
Are you buying this with that 20?
With the $20.
Okay. Okay.
I take a little bit out. I'm like, we don't need this to be that strong. We're out of town. So I splash a little bit in each one. I sell out in one night. Now I got $100.
Right. And you're selling alcohol to kids in the dorm.
Exactly.
What are you majoring in?
Business administration.
At the time, what's the thought?
College, I find out, is way easier than high school. They don't make sure you're at class. As long as you do your work, you're fine. It's college, though. I start having a lot of fun. I become the man on campus. I'm the plug. I have no one checking in on me at all. One night, I feel invincible. We're smoking inside of the room. An RA knocks on the door and comes in and finds us smoking and
Weed. Okay.
And we are suspended, essentially. Suspended for like 2 semesters.
Yeah, but when you're in college, 2 straight semesters.
It's a long time.
Lifetime.
It's a lifetime.
Yeah.
It's a lifetime.
Did you see being suspended as a failure?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I saw it as a failure.
So that's your first adult failure.
Yeah.
How did you take it?
I mean, my friends were crying. My parents can be so disappointed in me. I'm on my own anyway, so I'll figure this shit out.
So you saw it as failure, but not a loss. You didn't sense like, hey, maybe I just lost a road to a better life.
I didn't know what a better life looked like. Think about that. I was beaten as a fucking child. I left that life. My mother left me with this dude, and I'm like figuring out life to the point where I have to get a job to survive, to eat. You know, I remember calling her. I'm like, yo, I'm hungry, yo. I've always had to just figure things out. People think of things as L's. I'm like, who's this a loss for? That's why I'm able to bounce back from quote unquote failures. Because I've always been figuring it out. I messed up, you know, but I can go back. I'm like, this time I'm gonna take it really, really seriously. So I get back into school. I didn't have any means of making money. And I started doing the same shit. Because I went to school for selling drugs, essentially, when I went back to the projects.
Right. Selling weed is one thing. You decide now, well, weed probably isn't bringing enough money in, and you see the opportunity for greater enrichment through a more dangerous product.
Well, I was in the Heights, and I got a real solid connect. I had shit consistently, and one day, I was like, what else you got? And he's like, oh, I got ecstasy. And I was like, oh, how much is it a pill? And he's like, $3 a pill. And I told one of the guys I was selling for me, I was like, oh, my friend has ecstasy. You do ecstasy, right? Because, you know, back then, black people, we just smoke weed. It's like, you do ecstasy, right? He's like, yeah. I was like, how much is a pill normally? He's like, $20 to $30. I was like, holy shit. So I go back that same night and buy like 300 pills. We start making real money at that point in time.
How is that transition?
I just go off the deep end. I just started killing it. I watched American Gangster. I saw that you had to make this shit a product, a brand name, and I made my shit that.
You had that blue magic.
I had that blue magic. I was making so much money that I was able to pay someone to stay in my room just in case they raided, and I would stay in their room.
Fuck.
Lo and behold, they found a video of me smoking in front of the dorm. They were like,
Come in, we had a forensic scientist look at the smoke level. That's actually marijuana instead of tobacco.
I was like, this is impossible. They're like,
Okay, then pee in a cup.
Oh, that also is impossible.
the room got raided. They were like,
All y'all motherfuckers take drug tests.
back then it was like, if you smoke weed recreationally, you're expelled from school.
Wow.
They made us take tests. One of my friends bought a Whizzinator, which is like a dildo with pee in it. Unfortunately for him, he bought it white. He didn't check the fucking box. He bought a white Whizzinator. This Haitian dude.
Vitiligo.
Vitiligo, that's what he said.
No.
So hold on, let me tell you the story. So he buys the Whizzinator, right? I'm just gonna take the detox thing and sell at GNC. We go there, we get that. The guy's like,
Don't pee until right before you take the test.
clearly he was fucking with us. That was not the right
Oh, that is
instructions.
fucking terrible.
I peed green. I peed green. This motherfucker is so excited, he's laughing at us like, haha, I got the Whizzinator. He pulls it out the box. I'm standing next to him. I'm like, yo,
That shit is white. He's like, oh no, like I can't get another one in time. This is before Amazon was popping. Like,
Yeah.
he colors it in with black Sharpie to the point where it looks stupid, so he stops. He's like, whatever, like they're not gonna look at my dick. So we get in the testing place, and I go in first. And she's like,
Okay, drop your pants. I'm like, drop my pants, ma'am. That's disgusting.
She was like,
if you don't pee in front of me, you fail automatically. Just pee in front of me.
so I pee, it's green. I'm like, can I try again? Green. I know I'm done. I'm just done. I walk out. Take one, we're fucked. But, G, you are fucked. They're gonna look at your dick. He goes in there. He comes out with a shit-eating grin. And he's like, bye. I'm like, what happened? He was like,
Yo, I walked in.
she's like,
I'm gonna look at your penis.
he was like,
You're not looking at my penis.
she was like,
All right, well, security will come right now.
he's like,
Okay. I have a confession to make. I'm half black and I'm half white. My dick just happens to be white.
and she was like,
Shut
Fuck up.
Shut up.
and he's like, okay, put his pants down. And the Wizard is a little realistic. So she was like,
You're white down there. I'm so sorry.
Stop with these
so
lies.
sorry.
This has to be a white woman.
yes. And he peed. He got to stay in.
That's the end of the fucking dildo story?
That's
that
the end of
it
it.
worked?
That it
and
worked.
he stayed in college?
That he worked. They stayed in college. He got to stay. Jaquan and me went to the dean's office, and I made up this little sob story. He expelled him for real and let me stay in the school. I just couldn't live on campus anymore. I moved off campus. Me and G moved our operations there, and we started pumping out more than ever. One fateful night, I did ecstasy. I don't think. I stopped taking it for about a month and a half every single day.
I don't think you're supposed to do that either. I'm not sure ecstasy is supposed to be a daily dose.
You shouldn't be doing that all the time at all.
Now, there's no way you're taking ecstasy every day and still going to class. and killing
No,
it.
or selling drugs.
Or doing
Everything
anything
went
but taking
downhill.
ecstasy.
It all went downhill at that point, to the point where I was like, Ma, I have to come home. Like, I'm not well. She was like, I'm here for you. Come home.
And you were honest with her about what was causing this illness.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez. And so you get home with a drug problem.
I had X'd my drug problem before I got there. So one day I had an epiphany. Barack Obama had become president. Here I was, a gifted child, fucking spiraling down. I weighed maybe 120 pounds. It's all skin and bones. I wasn't eating anything. On top of that, I was a failed drug dealer at that point, kicked out of school. I'm like, what am I doing with my life? This man became president, and 40 years ago, we couldn't eat in the same restaurants as people. I need to turn my life around.
Now, this Barack Obama thing, he's black. He's got an African name. Is it that you see yourself in his story? Or is this something where you're just finding a pivotal moment where like, all right, I don't want to be a failure, and you're just looking at a success you can relate to?
I'm looking at a success that I can see. I can see myself in that person. And I can see what I'm doing will not be successful.
Like, you're never going to be president taking ecstasy every day.
I'm not going to make it past 5 years taking ecstasy every day. You know, I was in real situations at that point. I was buying pounds of weed at that point, having to have a gun on. Like, these situations are getting out of hand. I've gotten myself into something more than I think that I'm able to handle. So I flushed the rest of the ecstasy pills that I had down the toilet.
And now you have to get a job. Is cooking or restaurants or kitchens even in the back of your mind at this point?
The only thing I know how to do.
Is that why cooking was the thing? It's like, well, this is the only thing I know how
That's
to do?
it. That was the only thing I knew how to do. I grew up in the kitchen. So it was literally the only thing that I can walk into a place and know that I can get a job without question.
Where did you cook?
Louisiana. I cooked with my mom at her catering company because she was an executive chef at that point in time. But other than that, I was like, actually, I need a little bit more fast money. I'm going to become a waiter. And I became a waiter at a rib shack. That's when I saw real racism.
A rib shack in Louisiana?
Yeah.
You don't say.
That's where I was making like $20, $40 a week. And I went from making like $3,000 a week to that. So that was tough.
To go from 3,000 to 40, well, that feels like a hardship.
Mm-hmm.
And to go to an environment where you're experiencing serious disrespect and adversity.
Yeah.
So how are you now as a young adult in this situation learning to deal with hardship?
Dealing with it head on, facing it. This is the situation I'm in. I can either continue to be here or I can level up. And that's when I started to level up. At that point, it was like, all right, I'm going to work here until I can figure this out, or I can't take it anymore, and then I'm going to work somewhere else. And I'm going to learn more from here. And then I'm going to continue to work at better places consistently.
Right. And a rib shack in Louisiana, what kind of racism are we talking about? Is it like overt, nigga this, nigga that, give me my bone, nigga? Or, you know what I mean? It seemed to have to be a little more subtle.
People are smarter than that. There's corporate structures in place.
Right.
I mean, it was undertones. It was, you got the section in the back. Why does every black person that comes in here eating in my section? Then you hear jokes about black people don't tip. So you should take care of them. Making jokes about it, like funny, ha ha ha, and the manager be laughing a little too hard at that joke.
Is that true?
What do you say?
Is that true?
Is it true?
Black people don't tip?
I think people don't tip.
Okay.
I think I would not categorize it as the whole race.
It's the good ones, Tim. Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying at all.
It's that soft racism, as Obama would categorize.
Yeah, it's the way that they yelled at the cooks with venom, total belittlement. And these cooks were older than your parents. To talk down to people of color that just look beaten down. One day, I quit. I just walked out. And when I came out to get my check, I was talking to one of the other managers, and I was like, why didn't this person really like me? And she was like,
She'll never like you. I'm gonna just be honest with you. She'll never like you because it's the color of your skin. And that's why you didn't get promoted.
and that's where I was like,
Oh, there's a whole secret world out here of racism.
I just kept going from restaurant to restaurant and learning as much as I could. I worked in the kitchen. There was always some racist shit that happened in every single place I went.
So your next move, in your mind, is this yet another survival move? Or are you like, maybe I'm finding a path for myself?
I'm just surviving at that point. I have to have a job. I know I can cook. I still cared about every single position I had. I wanted to learn as much as I could. Food has always been a constant in my life.
You didn't recognize it as a career path for
I
you yet.
didn't, because I didn't see anyone successful at it. I saw my mom struggling the whole time and loving food. I'm like, I'm not gonna do that. I was doing music. I was rapping at the time. I thought I was gonna become a rapper. I didn't know what I wanted yet. I didn't know.
Were you seeing this as how Louisiana is or how the world is?
I was seeing it as how the world is. Louisiana was just making me privy to it. But I experienced racism in the middle of the ocean too. So I was like, this shit is just everywhere.
The only thing harder than becoming a breakout success is breaking in the first place. Chapter 3, Sea Legs.
The Gulf of Mexico had this huge oil spill, the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. And they were paying like crazy amounts of money for these guys to go out there and cook for this oil cleanup crew. Nothing I did in life equated to that. I had no cell phone service. You know, we're talking 12 years ago. So like, I'm in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. There was no jumping on anybody's Wi-Fi. So no cell phone service. I'm with 30 strangers, grown-ass men that have nothing to do but clean oil, sleep, and eat. And here I am, a young kid coming on there. I remember the day I walked in. My boss, he's like,
Do you know how to read?
I kind of laughed, like, excuse me? Like, I thought he was joking. He's like,
No, I get a lot of y'all that come on here and don't know how to read. I'm trying to gauge my expectations with you.
I was like, Doug, This conversation is over. I'm cooking my food, you're cooking your food. That's it. I'll cook breakfast, lunch, you cook dinner, breakfast. I'll cook lunch, dinner, you cook breakfast, lunch. We'll just alternate every 2 meal periods, and that's it. I'm not dealing with this shit.
I started cooking my food and I just outcooked them. I cooked from the heart. I cooked things that my mom taught me how to cook. The only thing that I knew how to do was cook Creole cuisine. Luckily for me, I was in the Gulf of Mexico, right off the end of Louisiana. So a lot of the crew members were from Houma, Louisiana, a very backwood country Louisiana town. And I started killing it. He would sabotage me. He would try to burn my food. He would throw my food out. I couldn't go anywhere. That was the worst part. I had to deal with it. We're in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. There was no helicopter coming for me until my time was up. And one day, I was looking for him. He wasn't there, and the captain said,
"We've promoted you to the head chef of the boat. We got rid of him. Your food is way better. Just keep killing it."
That was a win. So at that point, I was hitting benchmarks for myself. I was hitting my goals. I was like, I'm gonna work at the best restaurant in this town, and then I did it. I'm gonna kill it on this boat, and then I did it. It's scary going in, but you just keep going, you don't give up.
Now you got a nice little nest egg where you can make some decisions.
Exactly. So when I moved to New York, I was like, I'm gonna make it as a rapper. I moved in with my friend who was a rapper. He was staying with his mom. They had an extra bedroom in Harlem. We started rapping together.
Don't tell me you spent that bundle on a mixtape.
I spent it on clothes. Oh. What do you think I spent it on? Radio? Have you seen me dress? Now I had a little bit more confidence, a little more know-how. So I started working in more affluent restaurants. And I started working as a server in some restaurants and as a cook in others.
You're cooking and serving to sustain your life, and you're rapping as your passion?
Mm-hmm. I'm going to be a rapper. I was going to be a rap star. What do I want to cook for?
Tell me how this rap career is progressing while you're just keeping yourself busy in the kitchen. Are you a conscious rapper? Are you a gangster rapper?
I wasn't a conscious rapper. I did talk about conscious things a little bit, but I was talking about having fun and...
Party rapper.
I wasn't a party rapper. It was kind of like trying to describe my sense of style. It's hard, man. It's hard. I was a little bit of everything. Souls of Mischief and Wu-Tang and early Nas. Before I was just rapping just to rap. But now I'm like studying the craft at that point in time. My path is set. So I was walking around Soho one time looking for clothes. It was my day off from whatever restaurant I was working at. And I struck up a conversation with the store clerk. She happened to be the owner of the store. She told me the store just opened. And I was like, are you excited? Like, you have a launch party? She was like, yeah, but I'm just looking for a caterer. I'm still hustling at this point. I'm still doing whatever I could to make ends meet. And I'm like, you never asked me what I do. And she's like, you're a caterer? How old are you? I was like, ma'am, that is irrelevant. Do you need catering services or not? Because you look like you're in a bind. And she was like, yes, I would absolutely love catering services. Do you know how to make cheesecakes? I really like cheesecakes, but I want them like miniature, like mini strawberry cheesecakes. I was like, man, please do not disrespect me. I'm a chef and a caterer, all right? I'll be here tomorrow at 10 a.m. We'll do a tasting. I had no idea how to make a cheesecake, so I go home freaking out. I call my sister because she did all the baking and she gave me a recipe. And I stood up all night trying to perfect this cheesecake recipe. And at that point, I knew that I can do this. Maybe not for the rest of my life, for a long period of time. Because I couldn't write lyrics all night long. I would get tired if I was in the studio. But for me to like just make this one thing without thinking of sleep, without calling anybody on the phone, without texting, without watching TV, without even listening to music, I was like, I can do this for the rest of my life. I was cooking my own food for the first time. I didn't have the internet to look up recipes or anything. I was cooking my own food for people and putting it up. All they had to do was eat and sleep and clean up oil. So they would be brutally honest with me and they would be genuinely happy. A lot of chefs get addicted to that, making someone happy. It's instant gratification. Like, oh boy, thank you so much for this meal. Like you can see you're nourishing someone. There's a high in that. That was the pivotal point for me.
Did that up the pressure on you? Now that you're realizing, well, this is something I actually enjoy and I'm able to put this kind of time and effort into it, Sometimes when it's not the thing that you think of as your thing, it's easier to do because it's not the important thing.
It was still tough, though. Luckily for me, I had my mom. She was able to walk me through a lot of her shortcomings. She was able to walk me through.
Wow. That must have been a moment for her.
That was extreme connectivity. That's when we started to connect a lot.
How did that change your relationship? Being able to connect over something that's so fundamental to your entire life and hers.
Exponentially. It changed our relationship exponentially. I was talking to her every day. For someone who never thought they needed anything, I realized I needed her so much. And she was able to guide me through the beginnings of my career. That's why I credit her so much. At a certain point, my culinary education leveled up. But there was a large period of time where she was just running circles around me. I remember I got this huge event. It must have been like a $70,000 catering job. Getting a $70,000 check when you're 22 years old,
right?
Unless you're a rapper that makes it, that's a lot of money, all right? To the point where I was able to fly my mom up and say, I need your help with this event. It was a large event. It was for 2,000 people. And she was able to walk me through this event for me to be successful. I would never, I don't know if you know this about me, I'm very confident.
Yes.
But I would never have been able to pull that event off without my mom.
You're clearly going to be catering your own concert.
Which I did. I called it Music, Mingle, and Munch.
I knew we were going to get there. Okay, break down a day for me at this Music and Munchies.
First of all, it's Music, Mingle, and Munch. It was a networking and music event. I would organize my set. There would be a freestyle in the beginning. And then it would be a pre-recorded song, you know.
You're performing.
I'm performing, though, yeah.
And the food's coming out while you're rapping.
Food's coming out while I'm rapping, yeah. I would have moments of Malcolm X speaking. It was a whole production that I did.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. And then the chicken and waffles would come out. People would be all fucked up. How could you not like this show? That's why I don't know if they were screaming because of the food. They were screaming because of my lyrics.
How did presenting a meal compare with being on stage and rapping?
Cooking is selfless. You're doing this act for someone. Even if they say this is amazing, this is so good, it's not like, oh my God, oh, thank you. It's like, thank you, appreciate it. You good though? You need anything else? It's hospitality. Getting on stage is like, the crowd's about you. That feeling of so many people fixated on you is very different. Man, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it.
And to this day, that is still a more exhilarating experience to you. You're a frustrated rapper. I'm sorry you have to put up with all this cooking shit.
I am not a frustrated rapper.
So now we recognize this cheesecake story as a time you lost your path. Okay.
This is some bullshit, all right?
All right, so you've established this catering company. You've decided you're going to just settle for being a chef. And
I didn't settle for being a chef. I actually enjoyed it more. The friend that I was living with thought I was taking my cooking more seriously than I was taking music. We had a falling out, and I was like, I don't need this shit. And I walked out.
was that the end of the friendship?
He like blew up on me. I actually had a nervous breakdown because it reminded me of my father blowing up on me as a child.
What does that even look like?
Crying uncontrollably, falling to the ground, shaking.
That's a pretty severe reaction mentally, especially for a guy who is going to be in high pressure situations. You're launching like a real adult career now. Did it give you pause? Did you like, man, what the fuck was that? Is that something I'm going to have to deal with later?
It made me think about it a lot.
Did you deal with it?
I don't know. I don't know if I ever did. It wasn't the last time it happened. I'll tell you that much.
Well, when was the next time it happened?
Being berated in a kitchen, in a high-end kitchen, being berated and berated and berated. And then at that point, I was able to poise myself, not break down in front of people, but it still happened, yeah.
Some would define paying your dues to become something like a chef when you are in a situation that is uncomfortable, that is demanding, where excellence is required, that you can't walk away from. When did you find yourself in the first situation where you couldn't just fuck off?
I went to the CIA, the Culinary Institute of America, and I had to go on an apprenticeship. It's part of your curriculum. Now, if you get fired from your apprenticeship, you fail the course. If you just up and quit, you fail the course. So here I was in this apprenticeship at the #1 restaurant in America, getting my ass handed to me in the best ways and the worst ways. Like becoming very, very in tune with my craft, also dealing with some racist bullshit. For me, it always struck me a little differently because my father was verbally abusive. So whenever I was verbally abused, even as an adult, or verbally attacked, it brought me back to, an inner fetal position and made me want to retreat from whatever was happening around me. It was just to the point where I think one of them said, I don't think you're going to make it. It was like a 16-hour day, 5 days a week, 6 days a week sometimes. It was a lot of work, and I felt like nothing I did was good enough because I also wasn't getting paid.
What did you learn from that experience?
They say keep your head down in the kitchen. I kept my head down, but I learned when to pick it up a couple times and look around what's going on in my vicinity. They change the menu every single day. Chef would say, like,
You're on roast station. What's the meat gonna be for the next day? Oh, you got nothing to say? You fucking idiot. I gotta come up with everything.
And I was like, I got something, chef.
and the whole line, it's like, mind you, I have to stand up. I can't sit down. I'm not allowed to sit. You can imagine the undertones hidden. Right. You know what I mean?
Wait,
like there's
so
hazing.
Everybody else in the kitchen
is sitting down. The apprentice doesn't sit normally. And they are out of ideas. And I'm like, I got an idea. And the whole table's like, because I'm not supposed to speak. God forbid I fucking say anything out of turn.
Wow. And I'm like, why don't we do a play on steak and eggs? I don't know, do some wagyu with some marsala jus and some roasted maitake mushrooms and Hakurai turnips, and we'll do like a little quail egg that's punched out.
And the chef was like,
that sounds fucking good. Finally, someone has an idea in here. We'll run it tomorrow.
Oh. I'm an apprentice. I'm not even allowed to touch food. And I got a dish on the menu at the #1 restaurant in America. Man, at one point I wanted to quit. Now I got my dishes on the menu. And what do I have to lose? What do I have to lose if I just say this shit? What are you gonna do? Fire me? Curse me out? Make me cry? You've done everything that you possibly can to me.
Right. How'd it go?
He didn't even tell me. I was like, at the end of service, I was like,
Chef, how'd that dish go?
He's like, it was a DOD.
And just walked away. It was the dish of the day. They call it DOD.
Where does this time come where you're able to now not go home and cry, not let it get to you to the point where you have a nervous breakdown, and really be able to be confident that you're in control of that aspect in your life?
So I don't know when that flip switched, but I do know that there was a lot of growth that happened with like extreme failure. You know, like my first restaurant it like completely failed. And at that point, I started to listen to the people that were like shitting on me, that were like kicking me while I was down, telling me that I should have paid my dues more. You know, I was too young to like go out on my own. And I was depressed. I was drinking heavily. And I don't know, it reminded me when I like Got up one day and flushed all those ecstasy pills down the toilet. I was like, I'm flushing all those thoughts down the toilet. Those people don't have my best interests at heart. People that have my best interests at heart do not kick me while I was down. So at that point, I lost my fear of failure in a sense.
And were able to finally succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Along the way, you talk about like Anthony Bourdain and an incredibly high suicide rate in the restaurant industry. Did you lose friends that way?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I've lost cooks from suicide. There are plenty of people in this industry that don't make it because of the pressure. You never know what someone has going on outside of this life, outside of these doors. And you berating them or belittling them for a knife cut can be their breaking point. And the reason I say that is because I've been in that scenario. And as strong as I look and as stoic as I am, I've got a lot of shit going on sometimes. I think you should think about the way you talk to people. I got an offer from the Intercontinental Hotel Group to put a restaurant in their new hotel. It's 200 seats.
How do you know that this is
I'm
the
ready
one?
for it?
This is the time.
I don't know. It was pretty sad, but I also knew I didn't do anything wrong. I opened a business and it didn't work out. I was one of the only people of color in fine dining at that level trying to do something. So, fuck them. I don't care.
Is it important to you that your father recognize this success?
No, not at all.
You think he does?
Yes, absolutely. It's undeniable.
But it doesn't matter to you.
Mm-mm.
Has he tried to express it to you?
He's done Facebook posts and tagged me in them, but it doesn't matter at this point. I don't need it at this point. I needed it when I was a kid, but I don't need it. So it literally doesn't matter to me.
It clearly matters to him if he's posting about it as a way to like reach out to you, maybe to reconnect with you.
Mm-hmm.
You're not open to this.
Not at this point in time.
You think anything that you experience, even the abuse of it all, is a fundamental part of your ability to persevere through those racist abusers?
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Your resolve of being
Absolutely.
able and really motivated to
Absolutely.
achieve and succeed.
Definitely. 100%.
So still no desire to communicate that to him or tell him what was wrong with that.
Not at this point, no. I mean, I just don't have any interest. It's beautiful that something like that could make me into what I am today, right? But there are ways to create beautiful things without abuse.
Do you feel like the part of your father that makes him that way is something that's in you have to control to make sure you don't become that way?
I don't know. That's a tough question, actually. You are a product of your parents, but you have an obligation to do better than them, meaning better in their shortcomings. So there's probably parts of that are inherent within me, but I'm going to do everything in my fucking power not to become that.
And you're giving access now to others to whom access would have been denied.
Mm-hmm.
You've put forward an example of how you can tell your story and cook your food,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't have to be Southern cuisine. It doesn't have to be fried chicken.
Or it can be. Or it can
but
be.
it
And that's okay.
have to be.
Mm-mm.
The very hurdle that you saw as needing to surmount,
It's gone.
it's not only gone, but you've at least knocked down the wall
Mm-hmm.
where it could have been insurmountable for people based on race or economic or heritage. To see someone like you, I would imagine, could do the same thing as you seeing someone like Barack Obama.
It's crazy.
How crazy is it to you?
I try not to get caught up in the moment and continue pushing. I try to wake up early and work as much as I can, go to sleep late, and keep reaching another level. Remind myself that there are people working as hard as me out there or even harder. But every now and then, I take a look around and I realize I'm living my ancestors' wildest dreams. I'm living my parents' wildest dreams.
As crazy as all this sounds, when you see this next generation coming up, Can you see yourself as their Barack Obama?
Oh no, stop that. I
As a
don't
young
know.
chef,
I
as
don't
someone
know. I don't
aspiring
know.
to work in the food industry and seeing your example, what were the attributes? He was young. This seems like an insurmountable amount of hurdles for a black person to achieve this height. He happened to be in politics, but the White House seemed out of reach for someone with his background, with that name, at that age. All the attributes you ascribed to him and the reasons you thought it would be impossible, and it was so inspiring to you to see someone do that, those apply to you.
Well, I mean, I'd be honored if someone thought of me in that light. I don't think I could ever articulate that myself.
What was it like meeting him?
It's like, hey, Kwame.
That's a pretty good impression.
Pleasure to meet you, brother. Really big fan of your work.
And he said he's a fan of your work in the kitchen?
I guess so. Actually, he was talking about my rap career. He must have heard my mixtape. That's exactly what I thought.
I'm certain. He's a chameleon, but all those colors are brilliant. So to be able to say I had a conversation like this, and that will be encapsulated in the annals of history with the Obama of the restaurant industry.
Oh, stop it.
Man, this is a moment that I will always cherish. Sir, I must tell you, I'm certain that generations after you will look at you the way you looked at the president that day. Man, you won the fight for a lot of people.
Thank you.
Hailing from Bronx, New York, weighing in at a lean cut, the Boogie Down Butcher. Chef Kwame Onwuachi. To this day, Radio Rahim. To This Day is a Luminary original podcast. It's produced by Pilot Boy and Alex Casnoff for Salt Audio. Executive produced by Dave Chappelle and me, Radio Rahim. Most importantly, I'd like to thank my mom. You may know her as Dr. Rita Muhammad, without whom none of this is possible.
Original audio production, music and sound design by Salt. Executive produced by Pilot Boy. Executive produced by Noah Gersh, Jamie Schefman, Nick Panama, and Kenzi Wilbur. Creative producer, Alex Casnoff. Executive producer, Elliot O'Day. Head of production, Liz LeMay. Head of engineering, Jordan Galvan. Production manager, Allie Strobel. Post coordinator, Alice Bearn. Edited by Geoffrey Mutchnik. Mixed by Salt. Additional editing and sound design by Jasper Van Dijk and Noah Kowalski.